Hey everyone. It's a bit late, but as promised, here's my 2.5k sub Q&A. Thank you to each and every one of you for your support. It means more than you could possibly know. Here's to 2,500 more and perhaps 25,000 more. As many people as I can reach to help make the world a bit more informed and a bit better for it. Thanks for all of your suggestions. Let's begin. Groucho Marxist asks, what best describes your ideology? I would say post-civilization, post-colonial, solarpunk, anarchist communist with anarchata tendencies. I am the one and only Andrewist. Jim Jam Shazam asks, what's your favorite Trini food? I really love doubles. It's a fantastic street food. Food though, I love a good roti, and I love a nice spicy callaloo with some carrot rice and macaroni pie. Speaking of food, Guy asks, what toppings do you like on pizza? Pineapples, any kind of meat, and of course cheese. No ketchup. In my opinion, if you have to put ketchup or any other sauce on top of your pizza, you didn't make it properly. Diode asks, what's your favorite color and type of anarchism? My favorite color, as I'm sure it's obvious, is gold and yellow. And type of anarchism, I'd say anarcho-communism because it's the most fleshed out in my mind and forms my foundation, but black anarchism's recognition of black opposition to the state historically and contemporarily really resonates with me personally and informs my politics greatly. Hulks Mackenzie asks, what do you think of existential absurdism? I mean, what does it mean to think? In all seriousness, I've never heard of it, actually, because as far as I knew, existentialism and absurdism were separate branches of thought, so you'll have to enlighten me. Louisa Ruth asks, if you could travel, where would you go? Well, I can't pick just one place, right? In North America, I've heard stargazing in Arizona is pretty nice, and I'd definitely like to check out the Redwood Forest in California. Mexico looks great for cultural and historical reasons. South America, I'm real vibing with Peru, both for the retreat experience and the hiking experience, because Vinicunca has to see me at some point. Jumping across the Pacific, I have to visit Japan, China, and Indonesia in Asia. While in Africa, I know I have to see Mwazi-Watunya in Zambia, the Serengeti in Kenya, the arts and culture of Ghana, stargazing and sightseeing in Morocco, and of course, the Great Pyramids of Egypt. In Europe, I'd like to be country hopping, especially in France, Germany, Switzerland, and Greece, because I have a lot of friends to see and stolen artifacts to expropriate. Ha, kidding. Moving on. Bilal Shamim, one of the dogs, an amazing patron, asks, what is your opinion on the existence of Western museums? This goes beyond the repatriation of looted artifacts. Do they even serve a purpose anymore? I think Western museums can continue to exist, but on one condition. All expropriated artifacts must be returned, and all wealth generated from those artifacts must be returned. Maybe not as a lump sum, but through some sort of no-catch long-term arrangement. And they should also pay to develop robust art, anthropology, history, whatever courses run by locals for locals in the places they've stolen from. If Western museums can't stand on their own without stolen artifacts, well then, oh well. I think the places they've stolen from would benefit from the opportunity to attract travel to their parts of the world with some freshly minted new museums. I think Western museums can serve a purpose in sharing their local culture, ecology, archaeology, anthropology, and history. But I think if you want to see the beauty of Africa's art and history, for example, you should go to Africa and visit their museums to see it. Western museums as they exist right now are just maintaining colonial relationships. They're the worst kinds of thieves, and they know it, and they do not care. Moving on, Anarcho Pill asks, what do you think is the biggest flaw of the left? And I thought I had just one answer to this, but then I started listing them and I just kept going. So let's see. Americocentrism, perpetuation of white supremacy through the constant primacy and centering of white perspectives and opinions, over-discussion of electoralism, misogyny, ignorance and erasure of non-white movements and theories, particularly black and indigenous, overemphasis on right-wingers, celebrity culture and almost religiosity surrounding historical figures and movements, blindness to the nuances of past figures and movements, apologia for the so-called actually existing socialism that is so obviously capitalism with welfare states, ignorance of the severity of climate crisis and the material reality we face, techno-utopianism, a very limited view of anti-imperialism, inability to learn from failure, lack of intersectional analysis, lack of prefigurative politics, dogmatism, constant online hostility, constant accusations of FBI and CIA psyops as though they're some sort of omnipresent forces, and intellectual arrogance. Lucky Black Cat and Bilal Shamim both asked similar questions. They're looking for book recommendations, which is why I started putting together the Foundations of Altruism reading list. It's still a work in progress. I'm still reading and expanding it, but so far I've got Anarchy by Errico Malatesta, The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity and Love by Bell Hooks, The Ecology of Freedom by Murray Bookchin, Anarchism and the Black Revolution by Lorenzo Gamboa Irvin, The Authoritarians by Bob Altemeyer, Anarchy Works by Peter Gelderloos, Mutual Aid by Dean Spade, How Nonviolence Protects the State by Peter Gelderloos, The Colonizer and the Colonized by Albert Memmi. Lucky Black Cat asks, do you have any podcast recommendations? What leftist YouTubers do you watch/recommend? For podcasts, definitely check out Joey Ayoub's The Fire These Times. He brings all sorts of people and topics from all over the world to discuss what's up. It's great. And I'll be on an episode of it soon, so look out for that. There's also Stuff You Should Know. They're pretty entertaining, and every little thing is fun too. They talk about all sorts of random topics. I also enjoy Nando V Movies podcast, Mostly Nitpicking, where he discusses different films. Oh, and any podcast hosted by Robert Evans is no doubt fantastic. Look out for those. As for leftist YouTubers, check out Zoe Baker and Anarch for your deep dive into anarchy topics. Folks are finally catching on to intellectual media. I mean, I've been watching her for years and waiting for her to finally get her moment, so congrats to Lex. She talks about black history and sex history. It's really great stuff. Tom Nicholas also has incredibly well-researched videos, particularly related to media. Get at Nancy's Library and The Storyteller for discussion and analysis of issues related to pop culture and black politics. Of course, everyone knows Thought Slime. Eco Gecko has a great series on cities and suburbs that I quite enjoyed. Ugopnik has some fantastic work that really tackles interesting aspects of capitalism. Step Back History and Tristan Won't Shut Up are both excellent. Get at Saber for some Afrofuturist related content, and Mexi has some great capitalist critique and coverage of green related topics. There's also Alki, who goes into some very interesting labor history. Twin Rabbit is severely underrated, considering they're bringing the heavily ignored indigenous perspective to the table. And I miss Almonte Studios, aka Ray Rose Show, because they always had some stimulating takes, but they ghost now, so I don't know. Listen, I'm subbed to over 400 people, so I definitely missed some, but those are some greats I remember. Anarchopil asks, who is one political theorist that you think doesn't get enough attention from leftists? And Irina K, acknowledging the evil of her question, asks, who is your all-time favorite philosopher/theorist? To answer both questions, I must say Bell Hooks. Everybody should be reading Bell Hooks. The Will to Change, Feminism is for Everybody, All About Love, her teaching series. You're all not reading enough Bell Hooks. I'm not reading enough Bell Hooks. People need to open their eyes to Bell Hooks. The Shreyax asks, how is Trinidad and Tobago as a country to live in? Advantages, disadvantages. I definitely dislike the corruption, the human trafficking, the blindness to classism and racism, the terrible levels of violence against women and LGBTQ plus folks. People are definitely still very colonized in their mindsets and their institutions. There is, of course, lots of cronyism and mismanagement and poor infrastructure. Import fees and tariffs are overwhelming, and a lot of services just don't work here, like PayPal, YouTube monetization, and up until recently, Spotify. At the same time, though, I don't want to get hung up on all our flaws. I do enough complaining and organizing amongst my own kin. A lot of things I love too. I love our ecology, I love our landmarks like the Banff Cathedral and all the different hiking trails. I love our diversity, I love our culture, I love the way we speak and the way we walk. Our food is thebomb.com, and we've produced so many great people, from athletes to revolutionaries to artists. Cast off for the steel pan either. I mean, the mountains nestle me every night as I sleep, and I'm usually close to the shore. I love my islands, and I see our potential. It's a mixed bag, definitely far from perfect, and quite difficult to live in. But hey, late capitalism. Regardless, Trinidad and Tobago will always be my home. SMH asks, what's your advice when dealing with people who completely reject the fact that our world is still dictated by colonialism? People who genuinely believe we live in a meritocracy. That's so strange to me, honestly. Like, If they completely reject the very idea, I'm not sure you can reach people like that. I don't expend too much energy on people who are set in their ways when there are usually many more people open to learning. I think Michael Kinsley lays it out pretty clearly in The Myth of Meritocracy. Class mobility is fairly minimal with very few exceptions, and racism, both implicit and explicit, systemic and interpersonal, still has a tremendous impact on the direction of someone's life. Racism is, of course, a consequence of colonialism, and it's so glaringly obvious that colonialism, which continues to exist in renewed forms, affects the socio-political and economic conditions of populations today. Like, come on, even capitalists admit this. Let's keep going. Joe Geller asks, do you have any higher education degrees / specialized knowledge in a field that you think people should have freer / better access to outside of the lower levels of education? Well, I'm wrapping up a bachelor's in mass communication right now, so I think it would be helpful if people understood how media operates. That being said, I don't think anything I learned in my college was that inaccessible. Sci-Hub is praxis though. _Vali_ asks, thoughts on EasyLN, Rojava, Chaz, Move, Free Territory, Anarchist Barcelona, or any other anarchist communities? I mean, EasyLN and Rojava are fire because I know a bit more about them. Not as familiar with the deep details of Ukraine Free Territory or Anarchist Barcelona, but I have heard that they managed to establish working class control, which is fantastic, before being crushed by fascists and Bolsheviks. Not so fantastic. Move is a community I want to eventually do a whole video about, but from what I know, they did well before being bombed. Lastly, Chaz, or as I and others call it, CHOP. Not an anarchist community, as the foundations were never in place. That's all I'll say about it. Voltairine Kropotkin asks, are you more of a gradualist or a rupturalist when it comes to abolishing the state and building social anarchy? Specifically, how do you think radical social change is best pursued in both the global north and the global south? Great questions. To the first question, I'm a centrist. I plotted out how I think it should look on this graph, but I do believe a combination of both should be integrated within the game plan. Global south-wise, I think a lot of focus needs to be placed on building community resilience and autonomy in response to climate change, since so many of our countries are former colonies that weren't really established with anything but dependency in mind. Autonomy is vital. Also, workers in the global south can do a lot to rupture global supply chains, particularly through workplace seizures, squatting, and other less than by-the-books techniques. However, they can only get so far with all these elites ready to roll out troops once their financial interests are threatened. Those in the global north need to start breaking, not shaking, the table. Stop playing the electoral games, because we really don't have much time left. I don't want to say too much and get myself in trouble, so I'll leave it at that. Akobster asks, what role do you see for digital technology like computers or the web, etc., in a stateless, classless society? I think the internet needs to be here to stay. I don't know about you all. As much as we need to localize production and consumption as much as possible to remain sustainable and viable, I do find it important to stay connected globally. I've got a lot of friends abroad that I'd miss otherwise. We do need to deconstruct and reconstruct social media though. The way it's been designed is breaking us. I think Mastodon has some potential as a decentralized open source space with less emphasis on the addiction fueling aspects of social media, but yeah, social media is pretty broken right now. I do like cloud storage, and I think if we can maintain that, we can really protect all of humanity's knowledge for centuries to come. And plus, having access to that kind of info can help us make more informed decisions on the local level. Having some kind of database where folks can share how they've dealt with various problems would be super useful as we work to heal the earth in our societies. And when it comes to other tech, like say automation, I think some can be good, but I'm not sure how sustainable it can truly be in the long run. I hope it can be though, but not at the expense of children and cobalt mines. Same for most other technologies really. If we can find ways to produce them without exploitation of people or the environment, like if we can reuse waste and stuff, that'd be great. Jamfish and a few others asked, what made you want to start the channel? Well, it really started after I'd been writing on my blog for a while, and one blog post in particular was getting quite long, so I just decided to make it a video. It's that simple really. I never really set out to be a YouTuber. It just kind of happened. I already produced a poem for the channel, but that video essay on education was what really got me in tune with things. From there, I just kept on developing the style of my channel, Slowly found my voice as a creator. From drawing title cards, to adding a little cartoon version of myself, to those little 2-second video intros, to those little jokes about historical figures' names. St. Andrewism is an outlet for me, and I see this channel as a way to bring often ignored perspectives to this corner of YouTube. Topics usually pop into my brain as I'm doing stuff. Sometimes I see a gap in the left tube space, so I look to fill it. Or I watch a video or listen to a podcast and get some inspiration. Or I'm reading, or I'm organizing and I get an idea. I try to talk about things that aren't often talked about, and most of all, I want to produce videos that I can share with people I'm trying to educate and radicalize in my personal life. I try to make things as accessible as possible. Final question, and I believe it was asked in a couple different ways by a couple different people, including my awesome patron, Cash Brand. How did you become radicalized? Where did you start on your revolutionary journey? Full disclosure, my parents never really discussed politics with me, but they're conservative evangelical Christians, so my views on the world were quite bent for a bit. My first conscious introduction to the world of politics came from a fellow homeschooler at the time, Hunter Avallone. Yes, I know. A friend had reposted one of his comedy sketches back when he did comedy sketches on Google+. Yes, I know. So I started watching him as early as 2015, I think. His content took a turn, though, into the realm of politics, particularly surrounding the 2016 election of Donald Trump. He was my first intro into feminism and trans identity, and yes, I know. Through him, the YouTube algorithm got me on folks I'm too ashamed to even mention right now. Okay, I'll say one, PragerU, but it really ended up screwing my perspective. I was one of those people who would call myself an egalitarian and whose only exposure to feminism was reactions to BuzzFeed stuff. I was never in Gamergate or on message boards or anything like that. I was more of a lurker. But at some point, I took a step back, realized what I was taking in, and just moved away from it. I realized the content I was consuming was affecting my perception of women and my own people. Because, yeah, my parents didn't really talk about race with me either. So thanks to the media, I had some very skewed, internalized anti-blackness. Eventually, I was on Tumblr, which I was always on even as I was consuming r/Tumblr in action. Yes, I know. But I found this guy, Kropotkin Christian or something. He was a Christian anarchist and he really opened my eyes to things I hadn't even considered. He's not on Tumblr anymore, but his posts really shifted my perspective, because at the time I was going through a lot of crises of identity and belief. From then on, I was calling myself an anarcho-communist, but I hadn't really read theory, so I was still pretty sock-dummy still. I eventually read the Communist Manifesto, but I still hadn't really understood all the nuances and such yet. But I started following more socialist folks on Tumblr, and then I jumped into BreadTube through folks like Sean, PhilosophyTube, ContraPoints, T1J, H Bomber Guy, Innuendo Studios, Non-Compete. You know the people. Non-Compete especially really made me see anarchism as a possibility. I've been growing my consumption of LeftTube ever since, though I try to maintain a mixed media diet, not in terms of politics, but in terms of stuff outside of politics. When I started working in an office in 2019, I listened to The Conquest of Bread on audiobook, but although that work experience was terrible and it did radicalize me, I was still focused on other things like art and fashion. I was calling myself democratic socialist and an anarchist. I was pretty politically incoherent for a bit. In early 2020, I was writing blog posts on Medium, and some were anti-capitalist, others were self-improvement or reflections of some kind. But I found out about Rational Wiki, and don't ask why I ended up there, that Hunter Avallone had a debate with some guy named Vosh. So I watched the debate and then a lot of Vosh's other stuff. And then I found out about his controversies and I went, yikes, and kind of took a step back from that. Up to this point, I still hadn't read much theory. I briefly started engaging with Marxism-Leninism, but I just couldn't get behind the idea that the state could ever represent the people. Plus, folks kept trying to convince me that North Korea and China were communist or socialist, and I just found it all very sus. Plus, ML's on Twitter, seemed so intensely obnoxious. I took some time to dig into everything, finally read some theory, particularly Marx, Malatesta, and Irvin, and could now properly say that I was an anarchist. The videos of Cuck Philosophy, Zoe Baker, Anarch, and others helped too, plus an anarchist FAQ and Anarchy Works by Galaluz. Plus, I'd made some friends in the now dead Discord server Gen Z Anarchist. So they directed me to some great theory, mostly anarchist and post-civ, and that expanded my understanding of it a lot. I've been reading and learning and organizing ever since. I definitely glossed over some things for sure, because I don't remember some things or I'm ashamed of other things, but in essence, I jumped from apolitical to politically incoherent anti-feminist to politically incoherent but based democratic socialist / anarchist to theory reading, revolution enjoying, super organizing, ever consuming and learning, post-colonial, post-civilization, solar punk, anarchist, communist. And that's it. That's the end of the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, thanks so much to all of you for your support as I've been doing this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. New video next week. Peace.